So I know, we talked about, kind of before this, there's been a huge shift in where data is stored. But I think another big change we've seen is, where people are working from. Historically, the vast majority of employees worked inside the bank. And so because of that, these brick and mortar buildings were really the focus, obviously, of all the security controls that the bank had in place. But then a little thing called COVID hit. You probably have heard of that. And banks were really forced to scramble to be able to even, continue to function working in that remote manner. And, really in many cases, this even continued after COVID. For example, we're doing this video remotely today. So what are some of the new risks that this has created for banks?
Well, you're definitely right with the new challenges faced around remote workforce, and I think long gone are the days of the old picture of like the castle with the moat, and keeping the bad guys out. And that remote workforce now kind of shifts a little bit of the risk out there, and I think COVID really highlighted a lot of the risks for remote work, where people were really scrambling at the time. We'll say, how are we going to work from home? And like, from our organization, we were kind of lucky because we already had a remote workforce, so we already had the technologies in place, we had the security controls, but a lot of companies did not, and they were scrambling to purchase laptops, and there was issues with getting inventory. So there was companies saying, well, just use your home laptop, and we'll just figure it out, because we didn't have a choice. That was obviously a huge risk to organizations by just, obviously you're dealing with one crisis and possibly opening up other issues because of that. And it comes down to still protecting the data on your endpoint. So, for example, if I'm sitting home on a laptop and I'm using traditional VPN, and all of my data, I'm working securely, I'm going back in through the network. That's great. And then there's new challenges around patching the workstation, making sure you have encryption. All those key controls that you need to have in place. But when you're looking at like web traffic, for example, is that, all right, well, I'm going out to this site X, Y, and Z, but what happens if I disconnect from VPN and I am still with my laptop, and what is out there to prevent me from going out to a malicious site or uploading data, etc. So I talked about the Cloud Act security broker. It kind of ties into something called Secure Web Gateway. They get kind of merged now. They're kind of really doing the same thing. They're protecting your web traffic, your data, et cetera. But when you put something like that in place, you centralize everything in the cloud. So if I'm sending data out to wherever it might be, I'm all going through the same location. I still have the same controls in place. I have antivirus. You can layer on data loss prevention. And traditional, if you're going through VPN, your data is going through there and going out to the cloud. If I disconnect from VPN, I'm also still going out to the same location, the same cloud site. So if I'm uploading on VPN, or if I sign off and I'm going out that direction, I'm still protected. And I think that's where a lot of organizations might have had some of those basic controls in place, but what was in place to protect, those other instances of people hopping off VPN, or taking a laptop somewhere else to a coffee cafe, whatever it might be, and doing video calls. There was just a lot of different things there, but something like a Secure Web Gateway really ties hand in hand of protecting that data while you're off the network, and I think is a definite benefit for anybody that's really migrating to a remote workforce.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the things that I've seen is that banks need to keep in mind is if you went out and scrambled and bought laptops from Walmart, wherever else, just to work, there's a lot of times they lose sight of those. They lose track of those. That's not in their normal reporting. Even an auditor, when they do their scans, may not pick up on those. And so it goes right back to what you're saying. With the new remote workforce, you've really got to have a way for those layers of protection to follow the employee versus the employee having to get under that umbrella physically to get those layers of protection.
Exactly. Yeah. And it really goes down to proper asset management, like you said, not just throwing out 5 laptops from Walmart, 5 laptops from Target. Here's what we can do. And a lot of companies did that. There really wasn't a choice at the time. It's like, we got to keep people working, but we got to keep them safe. And that's where the bad guys take advantage of this stuff. They always love a good crisis, I think. Yep. That's where they can jump in, and that's where everybody's most vulnerable. So I think now that everybody's gone through this exercise of COVID and moved to remote workforce, I think that there's a good understanding now of what needs to be put in place. But I think continue to evolve, mature your controls, and look at new technologies like a secure web gateway, like a cloud X security broker. How can we strengthen our remote workforce while allowing the business to do what they need to do, but keeping us secure at the same time?
Sure. No, that's great stuff. Thanks.